Can you hear me?
Yes.
There's a lot of acorn woodpecker holes in the trees. I think that's a real opening. And again, hi, David. I'm trying to skip the sentimentality because of time, although time is never really anybody's true friend, necessarily. But I did meet David in 1974, and when I met him first, I thought he was a really famous actor who had decided to, after much fame and fortune, to start a new life as a much more introspective poet. But I think both are true in some ways. I met him at Sand Dollar Books in Albany, California, when I was a clerk, and I had set myself the ideal and daunting task of reading from A to Z all the poetry books on the shelves that I maintained for the store that specialized in modern American poetry. What better way to educate myself, I said to myself. By the way, this is a tale for David. It was in the midst of this constant reading, shelving, shuffling, wrapping, and selling of books that I was introduced to David. He had just purchased a book by the Canadian poet Daphne Marlett. Gumshoe that he was, David took quick notice of the pile of books in alphabetic order by an author I had harpooned and set aside for my daily reading at the cash register. He said to me, "Don't forget to read between the lines." It was charmingly said, something more than simply witty, although it was that too, and disarmingly unflirtatious. He really meant it. I visited the house he lived in Sebastopol, surrounded by groves of apple trees in blossom. Standing outside in the dark night, we looked up at the sky. I said something rather maudlin and latently adolescent about the night sky being a shroud that hid a much brighter light beyond, a light that we could see only a fraction as tiny stars peeking through. David said, "Well then, what's on the other side?" One day, while rummaging around in a desk drawer looking for matches in Larry Eigner's other side of the house where I lived, David found an old portrait of a man I'd painted as a teenager. He announced with glee that he had suddenly found what he had been looking for the cover illustration of his new book, The Uneven Steps of Hung Chow, First Flight. I want to read from that, so if you can bear with me. I'm stealing time. "Friends," Hung Chow concluded solemnly, "the brownie of death is already in us. We ingest it at birth along with our mother's milk, and very good it tastes, too. If we do not wish to spend our lives in the cold and the dark, there is something we must do, something important, something I could no more forget than I could my own name." He looked at us for a little spell, and then, indicating the disciple next to me, said sharply, "Are you paying attention?" "Oh, yes, Hung Chow," the disciple replied. "Excellent," Hung Chow resumed. "If we do not wish to spend our lives in the cold and the dark, we must realize that the door wherethrough we entered is barred against our return, that its circumambient fences are locked and barbed against us, and we must find the faith to hoist ourselves onto the narrow crossbeam that is the way, taking care not to place the weight of our trust on the green, uneven plastic of deception until we can gain the steep roof of ambition about to be achieved and can squeeze ourselves through the window of self-realization before the marijuana of oblivion overtakes us. Then, and only then, can we descend the stairs of complacency and undo the kitchen door of circumstance from the inside. Then, and only then, may we honorably embrace the vessel of our hopes. Then, and only then, may we surrender to the rhetoric of a job well done. David's mode of writing contained a cubistic sense of identity and language compressed at the boundaries, gracefully falling off at the seams with generosity. By that I mean that his sensibility was like that of Citizen Nose, sniffing through everybody's business, including one's own, which is the poet's job, with the utmost curiosity in Buster Keaton fashion. The I was everything the we noticed or could become, and more in this polis. The I as in profile, the we as in surround sound in impeccable cadence. As Hung Chow reminds us, If all the thoughts whereof humanity is capable were to be inscribed upon a postage stamp, and that stamp were to be affixed to an envelope, there would not be much space left for the address of David. And finally, a short poem for him, referring back to Hung Chow, The Little Spell for David Brownage. 2 sticks in the road between, one for you and one for we.